Hello and welcome to the 53 Minutes of Heaven we call the D1Baseball Podcast. I am your host, Michael Patrick Rooney. Today's episode brought to us by our good friends at S2 Cognition. I'm not going to do the read. I'm going to tell you that S2 Cognition is about swing decisions. If you swing at the balls and you take the strikes, you will not play baseball or softball for very long. So get an assessment from S2 and learn how to make better swing decisions. This is cutting edge technology. They're using it in the NFL for quarterbacks. Really cool stuff. I want to also say thanks to our friends at Soldier Sports who are sponsoring this. I'm also not going to do that read because what you need to do is go listen to the Shock Factor podcast after this. And Stephen Shock's read of the Soldier Sports promotion is like it should win an Emmy or an Oscar or a Globe or some type of award. Speaking of award winners, I am joined by Kendall J. Rogers, Fitty Barrels, who didn't win any awards in our weekly picks competition, but he's generally awesome at everything else in his life, and the great Joe Healy, proprietor of the JoJo Joe's. Gentlemen, good to see you. Happy regional week.
Good to see you, sir.
Hello, Runes.
Hi, Runes.
Fitty, do you think that was a fair assessment of your career achievements, that the Fitt-tastic Fitt dogs were a major disappointment when generally every other part of your organization is excellent?
You know, I think anytime you host a regional or you get to Omaha like the Fitt dogs did this year, are going to do this year, certainly, I think it's a success. You know, I think it's unfair to expect a championship every year or any year.
All right. So you're pushing back on expectations. Stand down, fan base.
That's right.
Yeah, you gotta temper expectations when Stitchhead beats you in the pick'em.
I haven't seen the standings, but I find that hard to believe.
Ooh. If that were to happen, that would change the next shareholders meeting for the Fitt-tastic
Absolutely.
Fitt dogs. Yeah.
Might need some firings in order.
Fitzy quickly looking up the standings right now.
I don't think he sent them out. He hasn't sent out the final standings. You guys are liars.
Oh,
That's what I was told.
All kinds of
I would never lie to you, Aaron.
unsubstantiated reports out there. Goodness, the slander, Fitzy.
Outrageous.
Outrageous is right. I'll tell you. I know who's behind this, Fitzy. The country of France. Like that feud just rages on.
I mean, just to clarify, I've got no problem with the country of France or the people of France. It's just their language. Their language is bogus, and I think we can all agree on that.
That is, you're really, that's quite the fine line. I actually like your country and you. Just the language that comes out of your mouth is trash, is what I heard you say.
That's the problem.
Yes. Okay. Boys, here's what we're going to do. This is the regional preview pod, and I've got my phone in front of me, and so we're going to each preview a region, or we'll just kind of rotate through. 2 minutes is what you get for your preview. After Joe, you're going to start us in Knoxville. We'll go down the left side of the bracket, then the right side. Joe, after your 2 minutes have expired for Knoxville, then each of the three of us that didn't participate will just name a player that is fun for the regional. And then we will get on to the next one. So Fitzy, I guess I will take East Carolina. We'll just go clockwise just to keep it simple. So, Joe, I have you on the clock. Would you tell us about Knoxville, please?
I'd love to. Beautiful town, rolling hills. You meant the regional.
Yes.
It's.
Can we talk about the Sun Sphere, Joe? Can we mix in some Sun Sphere talk?
Sun Sphere?
Isn't that what it's called? The big old tower with the ball on the top, the golden yellow ball. No, you're Knoxville. No, you're beat.
No, you're beat, Joe.
Disgraceful.
SEC Extra doesn't know the landmarks. It's a good. I think it's a good draw for Tennessee, and it should. They're the number 1 overall seed. Southern Miss is obviously going to be pesky, and look, they make a habit of making life difficult. Even in regionals, they don't win. But I just worry from a Southern Miss standpoint that this is not the kind of party they want to be invited to. Knoxville, an offensive environment. They have 3 offensive teams in that regional, and look. Southern Miss can pitch it pretty well. Billy Oldham, Nico Mazza, Cross Sibley, some good arms there. But you're obviously going to get those arms are going to get taxed pretty quickly in the regional format. And it often comes down to what do you have in your depth, and those games become offensive. And I'm just not that confident in Southern Miss's ability to play that kind of game against Tennessee, which I still contend has the best lineup in college baseball. So I like the draw from Tennessee standpoint. But I think there's going to be a lot of runs scored here one way or the other. So, pack a lunch if you're coming to the ballpark. That's kind of my advice for you there.
Love it. The player, I want to say Brock Tibbetts for Indiana, but I'm furiously scrolling to see he had some injuries. I asked Patrick and Bert Granger, like, why did Indiana struggle and was injuries? And so they mentioned Brock Tibbetts as one of the key injuries. And did he play? Yeah, he's back at first base. So yeah, Brock Tibbetts could he impact this regional? Fitzy?
I just want to shine the spotlight on my Fighting Norse. The only member of the Pick'em community who picked the Fighting Norse to win the Horizon. Shout out to Traven Moss, hit 391 this year, 1100 OPS. Just a good player across the board, 26 steals. He fills up the stat sheet. I look forward to see what he can do out there.
KR, give us a player.
I'm gonna break rank here and go with two players real quick.
This guy.
For Southern Miss, I got you two quick ones. And I got to mention this guy. Bear with me. Obviously, Billy Oldham is the guy to watch for Southern Miss against Indiana. Guy just mixes and matches, pounds the strike zone. The other guy for me, for them, is Matthew Russo. If you look at what he did in terms of clutch hits in the Sun Belt tournament, him and Slade Wilkes were like a two-man wrecking crew for Golden Eagles. Obviously, Matthew Russo is going to need to continue that hot streak in Knoxville for them to have a chance.
He's a big kid, Russo, right? I've never laid eyes on him. Isn't he enormous?
Yeah, he's a big old boy. He's the one that had the video where he hits like the big double for the go-ahead run, and his dad's out there like, yeah, and he's out there looking at his dad going like this. His dad in the outfield, it's great.
All right, Matthew Russo, early. I need a replacement for Big Joe Vitrano for squeeze play this year.
My man Matthew is very much like me in the sense that he does not skip on barbecue.
Oh, I love that. Matthew Russo, American hero. All right, boys, let me take us to the 16 seed, which is East Carolina, Greenville, North Carolina. And, East Carolina, the big question is their pitching, right? Like Zach Root did throw in the conference tournament, their number 2 lefty, but it was a short stint. And then Treyu Savage has not pitched in 16 days. And then, Wyatt Lunsford-Shinkman he pitched, but it hasn't gone great. So he did not look like himself. So what do they look like? Evansville is a cool team, old. This senior class in West Carroll, they really bottomed out in like 2017, 2018. They've rebuilt the program. The Mark Schallenberger kid he was almost MVC Player of the Year. VCU, Bradley LaCroix, first chance to be a head coach. That's really cool. VCU's got some real tradition in baseball. Remember, they won a regional in 2015. And then Wake Forest this is kind of a theme for the tournament. We've got some gnarly 2 seeds, and Wake Forest being one of them. The question becomes, what does Tom Walter do about Chase Burns? How about that? Wake Forest is a 2 seed with maybe 2 kids that will go top 8 in the draft overall. So, I think that's the question is East Carolina versus Wake Forest. And then, man, what if Wake Forest and Chase Burns end up at Tennessee for a super regional? Fitzy, who's a player of interest to you?
You mentioned that Wake Forest has 2 players likely to go in the top 8 with Burns and Nick Kurtz, but they've got a third guy, Seaver King, who's also going to be a first rounder. I talked to scouts who pick like around 20, like, I don't think he's going to be there for us. That's how dynamic this guy is. I know he's not a finished product as a hitter, but talk about a game-changing tool set with his explosiveness, the speed, the bat speed, the twitchiness, the defense at third base, fun to watch. He is just such an exciting player.
KR.
In terms of player, I'll go with Josh Hartle. If you look at his start against, I think it was Florida State over the weekend, gave up 6 runs and 5 1/3. We know what we're going to get from Chase Burns, right? So I think the big key for Wake Forest is assuming, and that's a large assumption, that they win the first game. I don't know. Are they going to throw off, or are they going to throw Hartle in the first game? Do we know?
I haven't heard, but I would be very surprised if they don't save Burns for Saturday. I just think that's their best chance to win this regional.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the first game isn't a sure bet when you look at how inconsistent Hartle's been. So I think the big key, I feel great about them if they can win that first game, and so I'm going to go with Hartle because I like their chances with Chase Burns, even if it's against Zach Root.
Joseph.
It was a good shout out for you, Runes, with Mark Schallenberger at Evansville. He's in the middle of everything for them. But my actual choice here is Brian Curley for VCU. Saw him in the fall, pretty good arm, but looked like he was going to be their stopper, like a closer type. It's at least when I saw him in the fall, is a pretty high effort delivery. So I thought, okay, pretty standard, reliever profile. And he is a reliever. He has 17 relief appearances this year, but he's thrown 75 innings. So they're using him a little bit differently than you might expect for a reliever like that. So it's kind of like a piggyback situation. He's routinely throwing 5-6 innings. I imagine VCU is not going to be shy about using him early and perhaps often if they need to in this regional.
Awesome. And Kendall, as you said on the reaction pod, I think it was, watch your lips when you give Cliff Godwin a chance to have a chip on his shoulder. And I mean that in a very positive way. Like, yeah. So this one could be spicy.
Yeah.
Fitzy, can you take us? Oh, good. Yeah.
On the same note, real quick, by the way, do we have is there an update on your Savage at all, Aaron? Do you know?
Yeah, I just wait to see. I don't know.
It's hard to believe that on 16 days rest that he's going to be ultra sharp. Like even if he's healthy, I don't know.
And obviously, like that, just coming off a collapsed lung, it's kind of there's not a lot of precedent for how players, how long that. It's just a weird thing. There's just a lot of uncertainty around the top three. When this team is healthy, I've said this repeatedly while I've been, kind of questioning the committee for giving ECU a host, and I'm sure the Pirate fans are going to love me for that. Look forward to the hospitality I get out there this weekend. But when they're healthy, they're one of the 8 best teams in America, is what I believe. But those 3 arms are just the key to the whole deal. Obviously, the position player group is great, but those 3 arms are the key to the whole deal. And right now, there's questions about all 3 of them.
Treyu Savage is from the Philly area, so just throwing it out there. It's just an extra level of toughness. So, Fitzy, take us to Norman, Oklahoma, the number 9 seed.
Yeah, how about this one? Another good regional field. We've got Oklahoma, your Big 12 regular season champions, won the league by 3 games. Just feels like a balanced club that, has had some ups and downs this year. It's been a little bit of a weird season for them. I kind of feel like, the offense has wound up being just very solid, and you certainly have your speed. That's always going to be a factor there. You got some guys that can push the action, but I feel like it's maybe a pretty balanced offense with some, you got 4 guys with double-digit home runs. You got 5 or 6 guys with double-digit steals. I mean, they can beat you a bunch of different ways. They have a lot of power arms that they can mix and match with. They don't maybe have the horse. Not a lot of teams do have that horse that they can really lean on, but the brothers Malachi bookending that staff, big power arms for those 2 guys. So, obviously a good team that's going to be at home. I think Duke is super dangerous here as the 2 seed, especially coming off getting snubbed for a host that they deserved. If just in case you need a little extra chip on your shoulder, they got that going for them. I mean, the fact that they went 4-0 in the ACC tournament without their ace, Jonathan Santucci, who it does sound like is going to be back this weekend. He threw a bullpen, I think on Saturday. It looked great. Reports were excellent, felt great. And without Santucci and without Kyle Johnson, who's been the number 2 kind of innings eater, who they just rested him as a freshman. They rested him in the ACC tournament. Without those 2 guys pitching, they still just breezed through that regional. I mean through that conference tournament, scored a lot of runs. Their offense is elite. It's old. They play good defense. They're just a very balanced team, and their bullpen is just superb. Even though it's been a little bit different personnel than we expected, that bullpen's a real difference maker. So I like Duke actually to win this regional. And we'll see how that plays out. But I think they're very dangerous. And then you've got UConn here, who's no stranger to the postseason. That feels like a very solid number 3 seed that for a while kind of felt like they could wind up being a 2 seed. I don't think it's maybe quite as good as some of the UConn teams we've seen in recent years. But you've got some guys on the mound that can beat you. I mean, I think Garrett Coe is really the key to the thing for them. And is that the alarm?
Yes.
So I didn't even get to Oral Roberts. I wanted to give Oral Roberts a shout out because they came on strong down the stretch after Aaron Fitt lit the fuse, lit the fire under them. They have still players left from an Omaha team last year led by Holden Call Me the Breeze. They could still make some noise.
Oh, I love it. Fitzy lit the fuse. I love that.
Breaking the rules over here.
Kendall, who's a player of interest in this thing for you?
For me, when I look at Oklahoma, I go with Bryce Madrone. He's a guy that has been kind of banged up off and on down the stretch. But I'll tell you what, when he's on, like it's consistency, it's good barrel control of the zone, it's big time power, and so he kind of makes them go. I would say the same about John Spikerman too. I'm going to cheat once again.
By the way,
as well.
Kendall, you're right. Bryce, first of all, it's Bryce Madron. You made him sound like a tequila, which I actually enjoy. It was great. But you're right. He's 5'8", 175, and like an absolute 5-tool player. He's so good. Well done. Joseph, player of interest?
I'll do Fitzy proud and talk about Oral Roberts here with their ace Jacob Hall, a guy who pitched in Omaha last year for Oral Roberts, has been a workhorse the last 2 years for Oral Roberts. That's not a comfortable situation for Oklahoma. a guy who has been an important piece of Oral Roberts the last couple of years, pitched in Omaha. That's kind of like the nightmare situation as a host, that you get a 4 seed that has like a guy who's going to go out there and who they're just going to say, go get it, big dog. And he's going to go out there and try to throw a complete game. Like that's kind of the nightmare situation for Oklahoma. So I'll be fascinated to see what Jacob Hall gives them, given the experience he has in that program.
Yeah, I'll go Oklahoma. Braden Davis. It's so crazy. He was the closer at Sam Houston for 2 years, and he's like a legit number one. He carved in the Big 12 tournament. It was unreal. And then, then you go Kyson Witherspoon the next day, who's 96 with a mid-80s slider. So, Duke would be my pick too, Fitzy, but Oklahoma is kind of underrated. It's interesting. Kendall, take us to the 8 seed Tallahassee, Florida State, please.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. I think Stetson, if you look at that regional as a whole, like Stetson's a club that has had to battle through a really difficult ASUN. You look at, Austin Peay, Kennesaw State, et cetera. That was actually a pretty good league at the top. So they're battle tested. Steve Trimper will have those guys ready. You look at UCF, and then in the 3-hole, Rich Wallace in his first season making the NCAA tournament. Very interesting. I think Aaron saw them earlier this year, and they don't have huge arms, but they've got a couple of guys who will command the zone. Pretty solid stuff. Alabama's a team for me. Like if somebody's going to come through this regional outside of FSU, it's Alabama. The question for me, as it always kind of tends to be with the Tide, is how does Ben Hess throw? When Ben Hess throws well, Alabama tends to do pretty well. And so, how he pitches this weekend is key. And certainly when you look at, the middle, the Alabama lineup, they're very good up the middle with Justin LeBron. So, I like Alabama's club, but ultimately I like Florida State here. Jamie Arnold has just been sensational for them. They're getting healthier on the mound. It looks like Cam Leiter threw a bullpen at the ACC tournament. I'm guessing that means he's probably going to throw at some point in the regional if you're throwing a bullpen at the ACC tournament. And, of course, I love their lineup with Cam Smith and James Tibbs in the middle of that thing. I think FSU takes care of business this weekend, setting up a super with Duke, because I took Duke in the Norman regional.
Ooh, love it. Joe?
I'm going to take a look at Stetson. They're arguably their 2 best pitchers are Zane Coppersmith and Cole Stallings. I packaged those 2 guys together because they both have 23 or more appearances this year out of the bullpen. I'll be fascinated to see how Stetson uses those guys. Do they try to stagger them, use them on different days? Do they stack them together and go all out to get a win in the opener against Florida State? But those are 2 good cards to play late in games for the Hatters, and so I'll just kind of be interested to see how they use them.
I want to go Connor Whitaker, but I'm just looking real quick to see who was the other starter for Florida State, because it feels like I love the offense. I mean, we all love Dorsey. So I would say, yeah, and Andrew Armstrong started a game too, and that did not go as well. But did Dorsey start the final, Fitzy? Is that what happened?
Yeah, did not throw well. He actually got hit both appearances this week.
Yeah. So I'm going to say Connor Whitaker. Like, as good as Florida State is, I don't know if they can win this regional without someone besides Jamie Arnold contributing a good start. Connor Whitaker is the guy all along that they've wanted it to be, besides Cam Leiter, and he's battled some injuries too. So give me Connor Whitaker as a really key person in this thing. Go ahead, Fitzy.
I like that. Gage Miller, could go to this ballpark and go off for Alabama. Just had a huge year in his first year for the Tide, 1,100 ops, 18 home runs. Controls his own, more walks and strikeouts. Love this guy's bat. Just love it. And he hits for power. And I'd like to see what he can do with Dick Hauser.
Love it. Joe, are you taking us to the number 5 seed Fayetteville?
I would love to. Beautiful place. I think we understand if Arkansas pitches to the top of its ability, no one else is winning this regional. I think that's just the long and the short of it. Now, the issue is they have not necessarily been there lately. We can bank on Hagen Smith, right? And I'm sure they're going to pitch off against SEMO. And by pitching off, they mean like Mason Molina, who's still pretty good, to try to save Hagen Smith for the 1-0 game. That's my assumption. But, Molina's not been quite as good. They moved him to the bullpen. As an effort to kind of just reset him. Brady Tigert has not thrown very well of late. Will McIntyre is slipping. His ERA really since, mid-March and into early April has been pretty rough. So do we see, Gabe Gackle in a starting assignment this weekend, who might actually be their best arm, honest, outside of Hagen Smith, obviously. So do they pull that trigger and just try to do something really different? Do they just stick to the guys do they dance with the ones who brung them the entire way and just hope that's good enough? I'll be interested to see. La Tech obviously has been really hot. They've been playing well the second half of the season. They came on strong. So that's not necessarily a comfortable matchup there for Arkansas. La Tech's a program that has a lot of belief. And boy, I mean, with Kansas State, if the talent clicks, like, sure, like that could be your regional finalist opposite Arkansas or whoever. We've talked all season about the high-end talent. It's just kind of about what they get from everyone else. And you wonder in the regional format if that's a good fit. I suppose we'll see.
All right. So I'm going to go Ethan Bates, who of Louisiana Tech, who, man, if there's no one named Jack Caglione or Carson Benj, like how is Ethan Bates not the Olerud Award winner? He has 15 home runs, 74 RBIs, and 17 saves. 17 saves in a college season. I feel like I'm misreading the stat, but I'm not. So Ethan Bates, the other thing, of course, he's for Louisiana Tech. He started his career at Arkansas. So that's interesting, too. I think he's an Arkansas kid. So, how does he feel about going back to Fayetteville? It seemed like it all happened on good terms. But Ethan Bates feels like he'll be a factor in this thing. Fitzy.
Yeah, that's a good call there, Coach Runes. It's interesting. For a while, Jackson Wentworth was kind of like the guy in the Kansas State bullpen, and then they needed to figure something out, in the rotation, just get some length, and they moved him into a starting role. And I think that's the key for them is what can Wentworth give them. I mean, as many big names as they have here on this team, this guy is kind of the one that they need to set the tone. And it's the cutter is just a bastard pitch. He's gonna feed it to you over and over again. And good luck with it. He's got other stuff, but that's the pitch. And so that's the guy I got my eye on. 107 strikeouts, 22 walks in 75 innings. That'll play, boys.
Yeah, well. Okay, Rizzle.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Hudson White for Arkansas. When I saw them a couple of weeks ago at A&M, he had 2 huge hits in that series. And, when they needed him the most in a clutch situation, he stepped up. He actually, he has a 288 average overall, but he's actually been pretty good in the SEC play. I know after the A&M series, he was hitting well over 300 in the SEC. So he would be the key for me, because I think the biggest thing for me when I look at Arkansas is I think we all feel really good about their pitching staff, but can they score enough runs? Because the thing about Kansas State and La Tech, obviously things change with Hagen Smith on the mound, but you're going to have to beat them without Hagen Smith at some point. So those are 2 teams that can score runs. And for Arkansas to win this regional, they're going to have to score something. And I think it's where Hudson White kind of enters the equation.
Love it. Joe, you're the one that started us off there. So I'm going to take us to the number 12 seed, Virginia, Charlottesville, Virginia, also a lovely town. Virginia, they're second in the country. They're hitting 341. This is one of the most incredible offenses out there. Very skilled, physical, athletic, and imposing. If we got a Virginia-Arkansas super regional, boy, well, that would be something. And so, Virginia's on this. They kind of, after the national title, they had a program lull, and now they're on a heater. They're trying to go to Omaha for the 3rd time since 2021, I think. Yeah, 3rd time in 4 years, which would be crazy. So Virginia has not pitched very well this year, but their offense just scores 10 a game, so it doesn't matter. The Penn Quakers, who they're taking on. Let me put myself on the timer. Penn, remember, went 2-0 in Auburn last year. And people that don't follow the Ivy League, this is real talent these teams have. Like Wyatt Hensler of Penn, if he doesn't sign pro, is going to A&M next year. And their ace, Cole Safiro, is committed to Wake. So it's like the Penn has real players. They did not win the Ivy. They won the Ivy League tournament. Columbia did that. St. John's seems like just a really interesting. Remember, St. John's beat Florida at Florida earlier in the year. So, and the rest of the series was rained out. And then Mississippi State's the team I don't have as good of a handle on. They have 21 losses. That's a lot of losses for an SEC team. However, they have 20 SEC wins, right? Or 20 SEC wins. So
21, I think.
Yeah, so there you go. So, I mean, Mississippi State is what I like about Mississippi State is there's a toughness there that they wanted to recover from a program standpoint. Like Jonathan Mershon is top of mind for me, and Johnny Long probably takes it overboard. I'm not even sure if he's their starting catcher anymore, but like they're feisty. Mississippi State's got their fight back, so this one's very interesting. Yeah, that you get some Northeast flavor, and then you've got the blue bloods in Virginia and Mississippi State. Go ahead, Fitzy.
Yeah, I'm going to give you Gerangelo Cincha because he's awesome, and it's he's just not like a trick guy. If you only know him as the switch pitcher, yes, he can switch pitch, but I mean, like he's a first round talent as a right-handed pitcher. And he's still draftable as a left-handed pitcher, but his future is going to be as a righty, and it's electric. He's really figured it out this year. The pitchability piece, I mean, it'll be mid-90s with a real wipeout slide piece, and how about the 108 strikeouts, 29 walks in 84 innings. I mean, I assume they're going to stick with Steven on Friday. Cal Steven's been great, and then you have Cincha on Saturday. And if you're going to try to beat that Virginia offense as good as they are, that's the guy that you want doing it, I think.
KR.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I think when you look at Mississippi State, we talk so much about Virginia's offense, and rightfully so. It's an electric offense, one of the top offenses in the country. So I'm going to say Mississippi State's going to have to score some runs if they play them, and I'm going to go with Dakota Jordan. Jordan was hitting around 400 about a month ago. Is hitting around 330 now. He really struggled in the SEC tournament. Joe was there, and he was pulled out of a game in a clutch situation. They ended up having Nate Chester. Nate Chester ended up getting a hit, but they ended up putting in Nate Chester for him in a clutch situation in the game. So it gives you an idea, just A, the message that Lamonis is trying to send, and B, how much Dakota Jordan's really struggling. But when he's on, guys, he's one of the best hitters in college baseball. So I circle DJ is kind of the guy for me going to the weekend for Mississippi State.
Joe, there's only one right answer here, so don't mess this up.
Oh boy, I feel like I'm going to mess it up. I was actually going to go with Carson Osmer for Penn. Stephen Schock will appreciate this choice because he's a 2A guy, but he's more effective on the mound, although he's having a nice year at the plate. But it's a funky slot reliever for Penn. And on a staff that has stuff, you mentioned Zafiro going to Wake, Eli Trope, a reliever's going to Texas, and he runs it up there to 97. Osmer is a funky slot guy with a lot of movement. He's headed to Alabama next year. So that'll be interesting to see how that translates. But he's the guy who Penn uses kind of here and there, and is a little bit of a Swiss Army knife in terms of what he can give the team on a pretty talented pitching staff, like you mentioned, Runes. Now, what was the right answer that I did not give?
Yeah, the right answer was a 6'8", 225-pound right-hander from St. John's named Mario Pesca. So, the fish. But be that as it may. Well done. Fitzy, does that take you? Do you take us to Tucson?
I do take us to Tucson. Pesca's had a big year, by the way. Sub-3 ERA, which stands out in this day and age. Love this Tucson regional, guys. It's really loaded. I think you've got 4 teams here. I feel like it's the best regional from top to bottom. I think Grand Canyon is the best 4 seed in the field. Just a proven club. They won their league by 5 games. They did not win their conference tournament, but due to a technicality, they still get in. They could give Arizona a hard time in that first game. I love that little intrastate matchup there. I think Arizona's really good. Won the PAC regular season and tournament. I've talked all year long about how much I like their 3 starting pitchers. One of the few teams that has got 3 horses, every week, with Clark Candiati and Cam Walty and Jackson Kent. It sounded like, Runes, you were suggesting maybe Kent's a little bit gassed. I wonder if that makes them, there are a couple of things to wonder about with Arizona after a long week there, but I think they're a very good balanced club. I like their bullpen. Dallas Baptist, love that matchup between Ryan Johnson and Derek Clark in the opener. The big, power righty who hammers his own, going to be probably a day 1 pick against the little lefty, the all fit team, Clark, who's just a pitchability guy who is just a bulldog, as mean as a bear. Love that guy. That's a great matchup. JJ Weatherholt, best player in this regional. There's a lot of intrigue. Any one of these teams could make a lot of noise, and certainly the top 3 could all win it.
Kendall.
Muted.
I'll go for Grant J for Dallas Baptist. I mean, a lot of the talk will be about RJ and the job that he does on the front of their rotation, but I think in this desert heat, the ball can fly, and I think a guy like Grant J, 21 home runs, 57 RBIs, a lot of Ks, 79 strikeouts versus 32 walks, but OPS well over 1,000. and he's had a really nice year for them. So I just think a power hitter like him getting in a groove at high Corbett is going to be a big key for the Pats this weekend.
Injuries have been an issue with West Virginia this year, most notably with J.J. Weatherholt, but I'll highlight Logan Sauvé, their catcher, who was splitting time with Sam White earlier this season, missed some time with injury. Since coming back, he's been a real Iron Man back there. He's basically caught every game for 6 weeks now or something like that. So having West Virginia healthy and Sauvé as a little bit of an avatar for that, I think puts them in a position where now, as Aaron says, like they could win this regional, which is not something when you go back to midseason we would have said, because they felt like they were just running on fumes because they had so many guys out that were important pieces of what they thought they could be.
By the way, boys, people are saying that this was not only is this potentially the best regional, but it was the best regional preview on the D1 Baseball website. Just wanted to do some reporting there.
I believe it.
Yeah, believe it. You better believe it. But you're right. West Virginia is really fun. Grand Canyon's really fun. My favorite player in this regional, I mean, J.J. Weatherholt, how do you not pick him? Cam Walty's an awesome story, as you mentioned. Chayton Krause of DBU is like this redheaded dude who's 6'3", 227 pounds, and has hit a bunch of home runs. He looks like a Viking. Like he's just
he's the epitome of big donkey.
Seriously, he is a donkey. Like if he's 6'3", 227, then I'm 4'10". Like he's way bigger than that. So and you know, I don't even Chayton Krause. I mean, come on, is that like a fake
I feel like
name?
he should be playing for the Fighting Norse.
He should be playing college football.
Gosh, who was the first baseman for Oklahoma State last year? Who was a former Norseman who looked like
Griffin Dorsey.
Griffin Dorsey.
How could I forget? I just couldn't come up with it. One of my all-time favorite Vikings. This guy's on the
old. I feel like
Dorsey
him and
team.
Chayton are related somehow.
Yeah.
They must be. So Kendall, take us to Chapel Hill, please. Who is the number 4 seed? They I guess being the 4 seed apparently stinks now because holy cow, North Carolina.
Yeah, what's really funny about this regional is I think Scott Forbes probably feels like the Tar Heels are in a perfect position. You know, going to this regional, everybody's going to talk about LSU. Oh, the Tigers are hot. Don't let the Tigers get hot. Meanwhile, you've got North Carolina, who has weathered a lot of injuries on the mound. They're balanced offensively. You know, what's kind of crazy if you just kind of go through North Carolina's power numbers this year, pretty incredible. Parks Harbor, 20 bombs. Casey Cook, 18. Vance Honeycutt, 22. Luke Stevenson, 13, and then Alberto Osuna at 14. Man, that's just a lot of power throughout that lineup. So I think North Carolina is going to feel like, you know, I wouldn't say an underdog against LSU, but I think a lot of people are just going to assume that, you know, LSU's rolling into town. They're going to win this regional. So I think North Carolina will be ready. I think LSU, for me, obviously I want to keep an eye on Christian Little's injury situation, as crazy as it sounds, because he's struggled throughout his career. He's been a big key for them down the stretch. And, you know, it sounds like he had a little bit of a back injury of some sort at the SEC tournament last week. So I'll be curious to see how he throws. But, you know, the thing about LSU, guys, Gage Jump and Luke Holman have been fantastic at the front of that rotation. Griffin Herring has formulated into one of the best relievers in college baseball. And, of course, that offensive lineup. I tweeted this out last week during the SEC tournament, but no offense to him. But when Michael Braswell is getting clutch hits left and right, like you're on a heater as a team. So keep an eye on LSU. I would say Wofford is really interesting to me. Congrats to J.J. Edwards in his first season of getting them to the postseason. But keep an eye on Zach Cowan in that first game at LSU. You know, he's a funky righty. He's a little different look for them, and he's put up some fantastic strikeout numbers this year. So keep an eye on those guys as well. And, of course, you know, Long Island, the Sharks making a postseason appearance in North Carolina this weekend. I'm not sure I like their chances against these teams, but we'll see what happens.
Very cool. I'm going to go like with the instead of a person, a group. To me, the North Carolina bullpen is really important in this thing. I don't think LSU has a good bullpen outside of Griffin Herring, but North Carolina's got a real bullpen. Matthew Mateus, Dalton Pence, Matt Poston. I'm going to kind of freeze it right there. Like those 3 dudes, if they can play a huge role in this regional, I think that's a difference maker. LSU may outplay North Carolina for 7 innings, but North Carolina at the end of the games feels very dangerous.
Yeah, and Ben Peterson in that mix as well. Love that quartet. Yes. The player I'm going to give you here is Marshall Toole from Wofford. I was doing the regional superlatives for this. Vance Honeycutt, of course, is most exciting player. How could he not be? You know, the dynamo that he's been. But holy cow, you look at Marshall Toole's numbers, guys. Talk about filling up the stat line. Hits 383, 1100 OPS. He's got 9 homers, 10 triples, 15 doubles, and by the way, 42 stolen bases and 45 tries. I mean, this guy does it all. This Wofford offense is scary. They rank like 10th or 12th in the nation in OPS or something, 6th or something in stolen bases. They can beat you a lot of different ways. And he's the guy who just is the centerpiece.
Boy, those are crazy numbers.
You know, one thing I was thinking about looking at Park Harbor's power numbers is like, can you imagine him in Georgia's lineup this year with all those guys? Like, ouch.
Totally nuts. All right, boys, well done. We did pretty good right there. So let's go to the right side of the bracket. I'm going to take us to Lexington, Larry from Lexington. And so Kentucky Proud Park hosting. Kentucky had never made back-to-back regionals before, ever. And now not only they've done that, but they're hosting in back-to-back years. The atmosphere last year at Kentucky Proud Park was outrageous, like awesome. So I hope it's that way again. Western Michigan's there. Congratulations to Billy Gernon, who's done a phenomenal job there. It's a chance to give a shout out to Bowling Green, who had an incredible year but didn't win the MAC tournament. But Western Michigan, my college teammate Corey Mees, their assistant coach, his son Grady is their second baseman. So Cade Sullivan's their first baseman. He's a really good player, really good hitter. Illinois can, they got off to a tough start. Dan Hartlib and that crew really righted themselves. Illinois can really slug. They are very physical. I don't know if that's a great fit for this regional. It depends on how Kentucky Proud Park plays. But Illinois there's just a very mature team and program who can slug. And then Indiana State is one of these just elite 2 seeds that probably should have been a host. And I do think Indiana State's a tricky matchup for Kentucky because they can defend. They play good defense in the infield. Grant McGill, you don't want to run on Indiana State's catcher, Grant McGill. He is an elite thrower. They've got Randall Diaz and Josue Urdaneta up the middle. Kentucky versus Indiana State could get really spicy and fun. So I don't know. Kentucky's pitching is interesting to me. Do they have enough in the bullpen? It got a little dicey at the end of the year. And then Indiana State doesn't quite have the same pitching that they had last year, but I think this is a fun one. Fitzy, who's a player of interest?
Wow. Yeah. It can go in a lot of different directions here. I should be more prepared, but I'm not, I'm going to throw Luis Hernandez at you. We talked so much about the 2 guys in the middle for Indiana State, the middle infield, Diaz and Urdaneta, but Hernandez, has had a monster year. He's a leading hitter. He's got 22 bombs, RBI machine, over there at first base. He's really kind of the big run producer for them. I like their team a lot. I just think they're really balanced, but he's kind of the guy that you don't want to beat you.
Kendall.
I'm going to go with Emilian Petre at Kentucky. I really like this dude. I mean, he's kind of the table setter for them offensively. He's really good up the middle. He's a big leader for Kentucky. And I kind of feel like UK as a whole kind of goes the way of Petre a little bit. And so I'm going to go with him.
That's a good one. By the way, Kentucky, you have the best home run celebration in college baseball this year with the Spider-Man thing. Just the hand. Congratulations on that. I don't know what that's worth, but Fitzy, can you take us to the number 15 seed Oregon State Beavers, Corvallis?
I can. And if I may just real quickly piggyback on your last point, what's with everybody this year, like the one celebration where they all just like do the 3-way hug with their heads together? Like, it's boring. It's terrible to photograph. It does not translate.
Or the I love you hand sign or whatever.
Oh yeah, I've never been a fan of that one either.
Everybody's doing that one now.
But the bro hug at home plate is boring. That's the best descriptor for it. Yeah,
it just doesn't get it done for me.
Who would have thought that Aaron would be advocating for the fur coat with a daddy hat?
Well, yeah, I mean, anything interesting. I'm here for anything interesting. I never had a problem with the fur coat with a daddy hat. I always thought that was fun. And also even something like the helmet's tap. At least it's like you can get a photograph of the guy's face. Like that's anyway. Onward. Corvallis, Oregon State. Gosh, this is a fun one. Oregon State, UC Irvine, Nichols, and Tulane. It feels like the Beavers and the Anteaters kind of are Omaha caliber clubs to me. I've kind of thought that all year long about both of these teams. But I do feel like it kind of sets up pretty well for Oregon State because, Nick Pinto and Jacob Myers, the two aces, are going to probably get burned in that opener between Irvine and Nichols. Now, that said, I mean, you can't overlook Tulane if you're Oregon State. Tulane's played pretty well here down the stretch. Jay Ullman's club, they just have a knack for getting it going in the conference tournament, and they found their way back into a regional here. But you got to feel like the Beavers at home, they got a pretty good shot in that opener, and then you're sitting pretty maybe without having to face one of those aces in the next game. So that's the advantage you get for being a 1 seed. But I want to tell you something. Our friend Coach Mo, Bobby Miranda, sent his kind of like own the zone thing where he talks about the difference in OPS. Your OPS versus your opponent's OPS, and Irvine leaps off the page here, guys. They're the highest in this field with his own the zone formula. They're very good. They're very good top to bottom offensively. And maybe it's not the sexiest pitching staff around, but I think they're good enough to make some noise. That said, I like the Beavers at home. I think this is an Omaha club. I just think this year they've got to find a way. It's been a while. They've been there since 2018. I just think their offensive personnel they're just too good. Obviously, Travis Bazan is one of the most exciting players in the country, and it's his chance to shine here on the national stage in the postseason.
Kendall.
Speaking of owning the zone at the plate, how about my man Miles Smith at UC Irvine? He's had a great year for them. Caden Kendall was kind of the headliner coming into the season, but Miles Smith has been fantastic, guys. OPS of 1.154, 44 walks to 28 strikeouts. He's got some pop in the bat. He's got gap power, 43 RBIs. When you look at the top of this UC Irvine lineup with him, Kendall, Woody Hayden, that's a really solid trio. So for the Anteaters to get through this thing, we know OSU is an offensive club. For UC Irvine to get through this thing, they're going to have to be offensive as well in Corvallis. And those are the three guys. With Smith leading the way, they kind of stir the drink.
Just a fun factoid: last time Irvine went to Omaha, 2014, they were in fact sent to the Corvallis regional. So
there we go.
Yeah, very interesting.
I'm actually really intrigued, not to prolong this discussion on this regional, but I'm actually very intrigued to see the two Big West teams in the postseason, just because the rest of that league was so bad this year. Like, we don't really know what to expect, but my hunch is those two teams are pretty good. Like, they're really good.
I would push back on the Big West actually being that bad this year. I think it was better than usual. You had a few more teams there at the top that were in the mix. Hawaii.
Yeah, Hawaii. Hawaii had a better year, but Cal Poly got smashed in non-conference. They did well in conference, but they got destroyed in non-conference.
Yeah, I just think you had 5 teams there with Northridge, Hawaii, and Poly that were all. I think it was actually an okay year in the Big West.
There was just no middle to the Big West this year. Like, 3 of the 3 teams in the league are looking for a coach right now. Yeah. And then, but Tommy Nicholson at UC Davis, to get us completely off track, boy, he did an awesome job. They had their best year in 100 years. Or since they won the league a few years ago. My player in this one is Jacob Myers. Is fascinating. You should do yourself a favor and look up his stats. You mentioned him, Fitzy. This is amazing. 15 starts, 69 innings, 74 walks, 105 strikeouts. People are hitting 160 against Jacob Myers. So he will, like you said, he'll face Nick Pinto, who's got like 55 career starts. He leads the country. He's probably got more than that right now. And his grandmother's from Philadelphia, by the way, Upper Darby in the house. But Irvine is one of the teams in the country that draws the most walks. So Irvine versus Myers is fascinating. Like, that'll be crazy. So anyway, yeah, that's a fun one. Kendall, you want to take us to the number 10 seed NC State in Raleigh?
Yeah, how about that? I think NC State to me is just ultra scary. I've got NC State getting all the way to Omaha. I think just the way they've been offensively, they've pitched well in some big situations down the stretch. You look at South Carolina. The question for me with the Gamecocks is, can they play this weekend the way they did in Hoover? I'm skeptical, but if you look at the week they had in Hoover, Cole Messina was really good, a lot of clutch hits. Their defense was awful the last couple of games in Hoover. But, Cole Messina was a key for them. I think when you look at what they can do on the mound, Garrett Gainey's a really nice arm. Obviously, Ty Good's a really, a high-quality arm. Eli Jones. They've got a few arms where they can kind of match up with these teams, specifically NC State. But they're going to have to play better defense. And again, I'm skeptical they can play that the way they did all last week this weekend. And I think NC State's a difficult matchup. Ryan Klosterman getting the Bulldogs back to the postseason, the Bryant Athletic Conference. They'll be pesky as usual. And then James Madison, keep an eye on Fenwick Trimble. I guarantee you, Runes and Berkey will be talking about this guy on the ESPN Roundabout show. Fenwick Trimble's had an awesome year for the Dukes, just a big-time power hitter in the middle of that lineup. Did a nice job at the Sun Belt tournament. So keep an eye on Fenwick Trimble. James Madison guys can really hit.
Lord Fenwick Trimble to you.
Correct.
Lord Fenwick. Oh, that's so great.
Fenwick Trimble.
But by the way, Nick Pinto is up to 61 starts right now in college baseball. I mean, how amazing is that? So player to watch, what I want to say is the NC State bullpen, the freshmen, particularly like Jacob Duden and Cooper Consiglio, are just awesome. I think you're right, Kendall. NC State's got this really neat team that is hard to understand, like veterans like Alec Makarevich, who's the all-time or is the active leader in games played in college baseball right now. Garrett Pennington, who was Division II to Division I. So anyway, Fitzy, sorry, I just totally violated my own rule, but NC State's roster is super fun.
They are, and really, it's 4 young arms there in that bullpen that have kind of been the key, in my opinion, to their run. Those 4 young arms at the back, because their starting pitching is fine, but it's not going to blow you away. The bullpen is really good. That's a strength for them. Who besides Messina and Petrie? That's my key for South Carolina. If you look at their war leaders as a team, it's Messina and Petrie, and then it's Parker Nolan is the next guy. And they're going to need a little more support, because I think you can kind of work around those 2 guys a little bit. You just have to not let those 2 guys beat you. So my player to watch here for South Carolina is fill in the blank. It's got to be someone other than Messina and Petrie. Someone's got to step up. We need more guys to. And hey, I guess they played well last week. I didn't get to see any of those games. I was in the ACC, but clearly they're figuring something out. Maybe playing better at the right time. So they're certainly dangerous. I think South Carolina coming in here with almost house money. Nobody's really like, they're a bubble team toward the end of the year. Like, they're not hosting. They don't have to deal with the intensity of the home regional and their fans. Maybe it's an advantage going out on the road.
That is a really good point, Fitzy, on South Carolina. All right, so I'm going to take us to the Athens Regional. Georgia's the number 7 seed. How about Wes Johnson's last 3 years of his career? Big league pitching coach, win a national title as the pitching coach at LSU, and then have Georgia as a top 8 national seed in your very first season. So this regional is fascinating. It's Georgia, Army, who's in the regionals for the 6th straight year. When I did research on Army, people told me their catcher, Derek Berg, like I had somebody text me and said, hey, he's a big leaguer. Like, that dude, don't get the Army part confused. Like, this dude can really play. He said he stands out. I think he's like a converted infielder too. Actually, I know he is. Georgia Tech, and then UNCW. UNCW 12 regionals in the last 21 years as a CAA program. That is so hard to do. Like, that program is remarkably consistent. So I'm gonna kind of steal your guys' thunder, but I'm gonna say what stands out to me about this regional is home runs, because you've got Charlie Condon with 35, you've got Tanner Thatch of UNCW with 27, and then you've got Drew Burris of Georgia Tech with like 24. So Georgia Tech, they actually, I think their fielding percentage is like 980 this year. They've played way better defense than they've been given credit for. Cam Jones becoming a 2-way player for them really turn the worm. But this is an interesting one. I'm not so sure Georgia's going to have an easy time with this field, but I do think there'll be a lot of home runs hit there. So go ahead, Fitzy.
Yeah, that's a good call. I love this Wilmington team. I think they're really well balanced. I think they're old. And you do have some arms. I think the bullpen actually has some power pieces that they can throw at you. Luke Craig is the guy I'm going to throw at you, even though I like Wilmington's rotation a lot. Sales, Schaefer, and Taylor, but Luke Craig, kind of the anchor of that bullpen. It's real stuff, and it just, bullpens matter in the postseason. They've got a good one, and he's I mean, it's a 2.19 ERA, 7 saves. He's a ton of strikeouts. I mean, he's a real difference maker.
Kendall.
Is it against the rules to stick with UNC Wilmington here?
Go for it.
Yeah. I'll just go off of what Rooney just mentioned, and Foley Field can be an absolute launching pad. And remember the name Tanner Thatch. I wrote about him last year on our side. And boy, I tell you what, he's had a great year from a power standpoint. 27 bombs, 74 guys, RBIs. There's a little bit of swing and miss there, but boy, he's had an outstanding year for them. And of course, Trevor Marsh is another big time piece for the Seahawks. So the Seahawks offensively, they may not have as much, they may not have the sheer number of just double-digit home run guys, but the two guys they have, especially Thatch, I mean, they could go off this weekend at Foley Field.
I feel like in squeeze play, we're going to be in the Athens regional a lot. That one has some real intrigue to me.
Well, and I think, too, I will say this real quick, Runes. We talk about teams with a little bit of chip on the shoulder. I do think there's an element with Randy Hood's team where, like, people are going, Georgia either has an easy draw or, they get to play Georgia Tech. And I think UNCW may sense a little bit of that going into the weekend. Like, people are just thinking it's Georgia Tech and Georgia. And, oh, by the way, we're here. So keep an eye on that.
And all year long, it's like people are talking Northeastern people, looking in the mirror here. But Northeastern got a lot of hype all year long. And I think I know for a fact that kind of ticked off Wilmington, and like they went up there and won that series. And it's like, why don't we get any credit? Yeah, totally chip on their shoulder team. I think they're very sneaky dangerous here.
Fitzy, take us to Clemson, South Carolina, the number 6 overall seed.
Yeah, Clemson, gosh, they just find ways to win, and it's not been as easy for them down the stretch. It feels like, it's one of those teams because they've had so many comeback wins, and some kind of crazy stuff happens. You almost wonder sometimes, is this sustainable? But they just find ways, even in the ACC tournament, they're down 6-0 to Louisville, and they still find a way to come back and win with Louisville's playing for its postseason life. And Clemson didn't have that much to play for. They just, they're winners. And that's, I think, their biggest strength. They're also a good offensive club, of course, a very good offensive club. But I think you look at maybe losing their shortstop, Shufo, to injury it hurt them. I mean, Jacob Hinderleiter, he played shortstop last year. Davidson, he's a very good player, but like that's maybe a minor cause for concern for me. I think their defense is not as strong as it was before, certainly. They're pitching. I mean, it's just, there's been ups and downs with that staff. I mean, Aiden Canuck, the freshman, has been the best guy. Vanderbilt, it feels like is the better pitching. If you kind of, I was reading Joe Healy's excellent breakdown of this regional on our site, and yeah, they've got the clear, I think, the best kind of 3 or 4 arms there that they're going to start, and we'll see what Carter Holton delivers. He's kind of the X factor guy here, but I just, that Vanderbilt team, again, it's been a weird year for them. They've not been elite like we're so used to seeing for Vanderbilt. And then you got Coastal, another team that just felt like they had kind of a disappointing season as a preseason top 25 team, but we know they're super offensive. And so we'll see how the ballpark plays this weekend. That place is usually more of a fair ballpark, I would say, but at times the ball can jump. I mean, they hit a lot of home runs. That's their strength. Can they pitch enough? That's been the question mark for them all year. And High Point, another very offensive club. First time in a regional, you're probably not expecting a whole lot from them in this regional full of blue bloods, but they are very, very scary offensively. So they might be able to make some noise.
Love it. Good use of the clock right there, Fitzy. Well done. Kendall, who's a player of interest for you?
Muty McMutenstein, can I say?
Can I employ the Aaron Fitt approach here of fill in the blank for Coastal? And the reason why I say that is because I saw them last week at the Sun Belt tournament, and boy, they had some awful offensive approaches. Like, it was bad, man. Like, they scored 3 runs in 2 games. They looked out of sync. And like Aaron said, man, like, this offense can be outstanding. Caden Bodine, Sam Antonacci, Zach Beach, Blake Barthol. I mean, they've got dudes, and they did not hit at all last weekend at the Sun Belt tournament. They looked very out of sync. And so I just go with their offense as a whole because I had them in when we did our superlatives, our regional roundtable, I had them as my sleeper to make a run to Omaha because it's Gary Gilmore's last year. They honestly shouldn't have been in the postseason. They get in, but they've got the talent, especially offensively, to go on a run in this tournament. And so I just think the offense to me is the big key.
That's interesting. I want to say Carter Holton of Vandy because he just, like, his freshman year, remember, he had his last 3 starts. He did not give up a run in SEC play, and he's just not been the star arm that I thought he was going to be. But I'm going to give you guys Cam Canarella for this reason. Clemson has lost 5 consecutive home regionals. 5 straight home regionals they've lost. Let that sink in for a second. They've not advanced from a regional since 2010, I don't believe. Think about how much history there is. And I just think Cam Canarella and Eric Bakich are just not going to let that continue. I think they're winning this regional just on like, hey, we're done with that. Like we've had enough.
And I noticed that it's funny that you mentioned that because when they came out flat against Louisville, like I said, they're down 6-0. And Canarella was the one guy who's like still playing. He's kind of chippy, like staring the pitcher down on high and but he got on base all 5 times. And it felt like he kind of willed this team to win. And also Bakich kind of like called the meeting in the middle innings. It's like, hey, like, just think about what the people in the stands think about you guys right now, or like people watching on TV. Do you think they like what they see? Do you think they're impressed? And it's like, he didn't like light in. We just asked them, pretty simply. And they, and they flipped the switch, man. It was pretty impressive.
I love it. Kendall, can you take us to Stillwater, Oklahoma? That's the 11 seed, the Oklahoma State Cowboys.
You hesitated there. Were you about to say Stillwater, Kentucky?
Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. What is the what I can't get out of my brain is there's a clip on let me press pause. There's a clip on Twitter right now of Stephen Schock lambasting the committee for sending Niagara to Stillwater, Oklahoma. It is joy. Yeah, it is.
What?
Because Niagara Falls, falling water, still water.
Oh.
It did not sneak past the Cespedes boys. They clipped it, put it on Twitter. It's worth your time. It is so big, Steve. It is really glorious.
You gotta find that one.
Yes. Go ahead, Kendall.
Yeah, now that we got that out of the way. If you like home runs, Stillwater is going to be the place for you this weekend. Again, Berkey and Runes and KB will be watching this a lot, and Mr. Schick will be on this regional a lot this weekend. Oklahoma State guys, this is a club that I felt like the last few weeks of the season played pretty well. Nolan Schubert hit one in the orbit over the weekend at Globe Life. Somebody told me he hit it in the middle of the second deck, which is pretty incredible.
Oppo.
Yeah, so Nolan Schubert is obviously the key for them. Nebraska, Josh Caron, can he kind of continue what he started last weekend at the Big Ten tournament? Six home runs, I believe, for the entire week of the Big Ten tournament. So he's red hot. Brett Sears is a really nice arm at the front of that rotation. And then the Florida Gators. Like who's going to show up this weekend? Somebody asked me last night, like, hey, what do you think about Florida this weekend? I'm like, I don't know. Just go flip a coin because we have no idea what Florida is going to do. So I think the big key for me when I look at Florida is I feel like they have a tendency to get home runs from, Colby Shelton, Tyler Shelnut, Cags, Luke Heyman, guys like that. But what's happened to them a lot this year, fellas, is they're hitting solo home runs. I would like to see the stat of how many solo home runs they have because they've had a lot this year in the games that I've watched. I think the big key for Florida is getting guys on base, and when those big guns come up, they can actually score multiple runs instead of just getting solo shots with 2 outs. So that'll be a big key for Florida. Then Niagara, keep an eye on Eric Radisak. He's put up great numbers this year, 30 walks, 23 strikeouts, 1.189 OPS. Again, the theme going into this weekend is that place is a launching pad, and Eric has 16 bombs with 67 RBIs. So if the Purple Eagles are going to pull an upset in the first game against OSU, Mr. Radisak's going to have a big game.
Man, elite clock management right there,
Thank
Kendall.
you.
Look at that. So my player is the Oklahoma State rotation. That's Brian Holiday, Sam Garcia, and Carson Binge. They're kind of like, a more off. I don't know. Maybe they're. Yeah, I'll say it. They're a more offensive version of Arizona, where they've gotten quality starts over and over again on the weekends. But it is a lot of pitch to contact, and it is Stillwater. So I'm interested to see that. But Oklahoma State's rotation is their separator in this regional. Does that play out? Fitzy.
Is there a lot of pitch to contact? Like, look at the strikeout race. Garcia, 110 strikeouts in 85 innings. Holiday, 118 and 104.
You're right. Like, let me rephrase it. There's a lot of punch outs, but it's not like even Binge throws 94, but it's not like it plays right at the number. It doesn't play up. And, Garcia is a lot of upper 80s. But you're right. Like, I need to correct that because they do miss bats, but it's not like they're not like Cags throwing 98.
Yep. That's true for sure, especially those first two guys. But I'm just blown away by how well they've pitched as a staff this year in that ballpark. It's almost like Wake Forest. Just like, how did Wake Forest lead the nation in ERA last year? How did Oklahoma State have this really good pitching staff in that ballpark? It's amazing. But this time of year, it's a different animal. It's a tough place to pitch, which is why I've got my eye on Brett Sears for Nebraska. Been one of the best pitchers in America all season long. 8-0 with a 2 flat ERA. Just a strike throwing machine, advanced pitchability. I think he closed out the Big Ten title game. I imagine he'll nonetheless bounce back and pitch the opener against Florida. I haven't heard for sure, but that's a guy that not an easy place to pitch. But I mean, this guy I think is wily enough that he gives them a chance to keep that Florida offense in line in the first game.
Kendall
once again is going with Mr. McButenstein.
In this regional, boy, I'm going to go with Liam Peterson for Florida. I think if Florida is going to make a run in this regional, Peterson has to throw really well for them. Their pitching has been an absolute disaster at times, and he's got premium stuff, but he has a young arm in this environment. O'Brate, especially if they play Oklahoma State, it's going to be rowdy. So how he does this weekend really could determine, what they can do moving forward. Because when you look at, the rest of the rotation, you got guys like Brandon Neely, but Peterson has the best stuff of all of them.
Fitzy, let the record show that Kendall's last muting is on me because I asked him to preview the regional and then give a player.
Yeah,
so that's on
true.
me. Coach Rooney, put that on my tab, please, on my nonsense tracker. I want to be fully accountable. Thank you for that. That's my fault. I set my teammate up to fail there. 2 more regionals. I'll take us to Santa Barbara, the number 14 seed. I'm going to mention our good friend at ESPN, Scott Gustafson. Santa Barbara does regular season games on TV, and there's challenges, right? Like it's not built for TV. And I think ESPN's got a really good plan this weekend. And I think Santa Barbara's park, I think it's Caesar Uyesaka. Yeah. However you say it, Saka is at the end, that part. I think it's going to look gorgeous. I think it's going to look like Santa Barbara, California. And their playing surface, even though they wanted turf, has turned out to be awesome. They really like it. It's natural grass. So Santa Barbara's got an Omaha pitching staff. They've got a real slugger in the middle in Aaron Parker. Brandon Durfee, their catcher, the Division III transfer, who had been great. He had been hurt a little bit at the end, but Santa Barbara is just a really good team. You don't go 42-12 by accident. Fresno State's in there as a 4 seed. I thought they would be the class of the Mountain West, and they weren't this year. They won the tournament, but Fresno State has a dangerous offense. Rocco Pepe of Long Beach State did not play in the Mountain West tournament, and he had a great year. He's got a bad foot, so that's an injury to watch. Oregon and San Diego are very similar to me. They're both like the Iceman from Top Gun, where if you believe that more games are lost than games are won, Oregon and San Diego do that. They just are really fundamentally sound. They know what winning baseball looks like, and they wait for you to screw it up, and then they just go win the game. And Oregon had that incredible streak of series wins this year in the pack where they weren't sweeping, but they were winning. So San Diego, very strong up the middle. They've got the transfer power hitter, Jacob Christian, who hit 1 million home runs at Point Loma Nazarene. Hopefully I have the right Division II school there. But yeah, it's all West Coast. It's a very West Coast regional. Santa Barbara feels like the most complete team there. Fitzy.
I agree with you there. You picked my pocket on the player, so I'm just stalling for time for a second while I go to somebody else.
Who was your guy?
I was going to talk about Jacob Christian. He's kind of got.
I'll go real quick.
Go ahead.
I'll go real quick. I think the big key for me, when you look at Oregon, if they're going to make a run through this thing, it feels like every time Oregon's had a big weekend, it feels like we've heard the name Jeffrey Hurd. He's probably the most athletic guy in their lineup. He's got a little bit of pop. I mean, if you look at his power numbers, you're like, yeah, what pop are you talking about? But I've seen him up close. He's got some pop in his bat. He's ultra athletic. And, they have not been very good offensively down the stretch and really the second half of the season. So I think Jeffrey Hurd's going to need to have a big weekend for Oregon to make a run in this thing. But I do like what the Ducks have on the mound with Grayson Grinzel and, RJ Gordon. That's a pretty good 1-2 punch.
Yeah, it is. And speaking of good 1-2 punches, I mean, I love that Santa Barbara pitching staff, guys. I mean, the top end of it is formidable. Even though Matt Ager was kind of the guy that was the preseason All-American coming in, it's been Ryan Gallagher, it's been Tyler Bremner, it's been Mike Gutierrez. You're just not going to find a lot of staffs that can match that group. It's a top heavy staff. I mean, those top four arms pitch a lot of innings, but I think those guys are tough to beat if they can extend those guys and get length out of those guys. I think that's the key for Santa Barbara.
Love it. Fitzy, would you like to do College Station, or would you like to defer to Big Tex, as people like to call Kendall?
Big Tex, if you're ready for it, go dive in.
No, again, put that on my tab.
Why not?
Put that on my tab.
Well, no, it's on my tab. I was over here writing an email while Aaron was talking, so I didn't want y'all to hear click, click, click. Yeah, how about this regional? What's really interesting is I think a lot of people are going to go, oh, A&M has to play the Cajuns, who are the Sun Belt champ, and oh, by the way, they're going to get through their rival in Texas. But the thing is, the committee actually did them a little bit of a favor because they probably have the worst 4 seed in the tournament. If you go look at what Grambling did out of conference, not very good. And then I feel like their super regional matchup is, it's not easy, but it's not the most difficult. So with that said, this is going to be a really interesting weekend. I think the biggest key for A&M is getting Jace Lavalette and Braden Montgomery more consistent, especially Montgomery. He was not very good. The SEC tournament. As a matter of fact, just a ton of swing and miss, a lot of talking to himself as he went to the dugout. Jace Lavalette has kind of been one of those guys lately that's it's either a home run or he strikes out or grounds out. So those two guys getting on track this weekend, I think is going to be huge for A&M. I like their chances with the wind blowing out and at 90 degrees in College Station. That's just a bad recipe for teams playing A&M on the road in that environment. Texas, for me, pitching. We all know about their offense. Jalen Flores, Jared Thomas, Max Blue, the Big 12 freshman of the year. Love the top of their lineup. But can Max Scrubs, Ace Whitehead, and a struggling LeBaron Johnson do really well in College Station? And again, in an offensive-friendly environment, to be determined. I've got a lot of question marks on that one. So the big key, that'll be the big key for Texas. And then for Louisiana, I think the biggest thing for me is they've got premium pitching depth. You look at the front end of the rotation with Andrew Herman and Chase Morgan. Chase Morgan coming back home. He grew up in Cypress, which is about an hour from College Station. And then they have my man LP at the back end. I'm not even going to try to say his last name. They got LP, LPL at the back end. And
Langevin.
Yeah, Langevin. Yeah, there we go. And, he's up to 96, 97. He's got electric stuff. Other than Evan Ashenbach and maybe Griffin Herring, LP might be the best reliever in college baseball, so he's going to be a big key for them. And, of course, keep an eye on my man Kyle DeBarge, the best shortstop in college baseball.
This guy. Listen, I got a lot of problems with you and squeezing in DeBarge after the buzzer, stealing him from the rest of us, and also failing to mention Chuck Beelance. And how dare you? How dare you, sir?
How dare you?
I feel like I'm stealing your girlfriend, though, if I mention Chuck B.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying you can't talk about the best closers in college baseball. I'm not even mention Chucky B. Get
Charlie
out of here.
Ball game. Hey, my player to watch in this tournament, I'm gonna just repeat what Kendall said. LeBaron Johnson, if he's right, he could go like 8 innings shutout baseball. Like, he's so nasty when he's right, but it's very tenuous because he could also walk 7. It's his stuff is really hard to square up. But I think if Texas is going to do something, LeBaron, if they're going to be a real factor in this, it can't be LeBaron Johnson struggling. I don't see how they can overcome that because there's not enough in that pitching staff, to your point, Kendall, other than that. So, Fitzy, what say you? Player to watch.
Ultimately, I think A&M is a juggernaut, and if I were the Vegas odds makers, I might make them the favorite to win it all. As good as Tennessee is, they're 1A and 1B in some order there. However, if this is not a cakewalk regional. Texas, as we've seen, they've beaten good teams. Louisiana, I like their team a lot. And you mentioned DeBarge. I'm going to go back to that because you didn't get to talk about him much. But what a dynamic freaking player! Best shortstop in college baseball is right. Incredible defender. Incredible arm. He's not tall. He's like fit sized, roughly. I don't know, 5'9", something like that. But he's got serious bat speed. He's just an electric athlete. He really runs. He really hits. He does everything. He should be a first round pick, even though he's short. Do the right thing, scouts. Do the right thing.
Love it. Boys, that was well done. This podcast always goes long. There's just no way around it. I want to say thank you to Soldier Sports and S2 Cognition. I will be in studio for Squeeze Play this week. Fitzy, will you be on site in the Carolinas, or do you try to go command center?
Yeah, I'm gonna bounce around between Chapel Hill, Raleigh, and Greenville. At least that's the plan. I don't know if I'll be able to execute that, but at least a little bit of bouncing. Got my eye on Chapel Hill on Saturday night if LSU UNC materializes. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Command center for you, KR?
No, I'll be in College Station, but we'll be trying to escape some rain. They've got about an 80% chance of rain on Friday, potentially 2 inches of rain on Friday, and then like a 50% chance of rain on Saturday. So it could be an interesting weekend in College Station.
Yeah, boy, that's interesting. How about it? Boys, let's wrap it there. Just for anyone that doesn't have a subscription to the site yet, 24 season at checkout get you 24% off. You do not want to go into the postseason without a sub, getting all these previews, the advanced stats, so much, keeping track of the scores, so much great stuff on the site. So that's it. Everybody, happy regional week. Enjoy the one of the most wonderful weekends of the college baseball season, and we will catch you next time on the D1 Baseball Podcast.